Christmas movies is Ron Howard's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, featuring Jim Carrey. In a scene near the beginning of the story, we find the Grinch all grown up and standing on top of Mount Crumpet, reading from the phone directory the names of the people in Whoville, all of whom he despises due to the fact that they had treated him so terribly as a youngster. Alphabetically, he says, Aardvarkian Ebenezer, who I hate you! He shouts angrily down toward the little town of Whoville. Hate, 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 double hate, loathe entirely. Is his hate justifiable? Probably. But if you've seen the movie or read the book, you know that by the end, and with considerable help from sweet little Cindy Lou Who, the Grinch is finally able to forgive the people of Whoville, and reconciliation is made. The Bible has much to say on the topic of forgiveness. From Old Testament prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, who liken forgiveness to being washed whiter than snow, to today's gospel passage featuring Jesus telling Peter to forgive not just 7 times, but 77 times. And some translations even read 70 times 7. In fact, Jesus goes on to say that the kingdom of heaven is like a king, and this king is then revealed to be both merciful and forgiving, and vengeful and exacting of justice. Remembering what we've already learned, that the kingdom of heaven is within us, this seems to imply that our ability to forgive is one of the mysterious and powerful manifestations of the kingdom of heaven. In the Episcopal Church, we often pray, "Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." But when we pray this phrase of the Lord's Prayer, do we really believe and accept that God forgives us? Sometimes accepting this may be difficult to do because as humans, we often struggle to forgive. So that if God's forgiveness really is as we forgive, what would that mean? Perhaps a more honest version of this prayer might be, "Forgive us our trespasses and help us also to forgive." However we voice it, it is clear that the directive to forgive is not optional. But, like so many things Jesus asks us to do as we take up our crosses, it is not always an easy task. I know this to be true. So today, as is often the case, I am preaching to myself as much as I am preaching to you. The thoughts I share with you today come from what I've learned and continue to learn about forgiveness. According to an article out of the Greater Good Science Center at the University of California, Berkeley, psychologists generally define forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. A worksheet found on therapistaid.com, a website dedicated to providing tools for mental health professionals, provides a list of what forgiveness is and what it is not. Forgiveness is not condoning, approving of, or excusing what happened. It is not forgetting how you were wronged or pretending that nothing happened. It is not something you do for the other person, but it is for you. Forgiveness is a mental shift, a change of heart that develops over time. In an article released by the Mayo Clinic, forgiveness is touted as having both mental and physical health benefits, from less anxiety, less stress and depression, to lower blood pressure and a stronger immune system and improved heart health. So we know what forgiveness is and is not. And we know some of the benefits of forgiveness, but for most of us, the actual act of forgiving can be quite difficult, especially if the offense is particularly harsh or if the offender has not even acknowledged any wrongdoing. As such, I have found some suggestions for a practical approach to forgiveness. Number one, identify what needs healing and who you want to forgive. And this next suggestion is a key point, I think. They say, choose to forgive the person who's offended you. It is a choice. Choose to forgive. Practice empathy. Try seeing the situation from the other person's point of view. And be aware that forgiveness is a process. Even small hurts may need to be revisited and forgiven again and again. Of course, as Christians, we know that open and honest prayer should always be our first step towards forgiveness. Pray for God to change your heart and provide healing. Finally, remember that forgiveness may take time. It isn't going to happen overnight. And the more serious the sin against you, the longer it will likely take to forgive. So looking back to Jesus' directive to forgive 77 times, it is significant to recognize that he's not saying that if the offender transgresses a 78th time, you don't have to forgive. Actually, the number 7 in the Bible is symbolic of perfection or completion. So in other words, Jesus is telling Peter to forgive as many times as it takes for it to really work, for the job of forgiveness to be complete. Let me close with the words of 2 poets. First, The words of this well-known prayer are attributed to medieval friar St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is discord, union. For it is in pardoning that we are pardoned. Finally, Enlightenment poet Alexander Pope wrote, "To err is human, to forgive is divine." Indeed, if forgiveness truly is a manifestation of the kingdom of heaven, as our gospel lesson today implies, I believe Mr. Pope had it entirely correct.